Great, but I'm going to let Gary begin our time here. Here. Yeah, the red. There it is.
Hey everybody, welcome to our first town hall of the year. It's my pleasure to introduce our leadership team so you know who's there to help you if you run into things or have questions. I'm your board chair. Lori Bruins is our lay leader. As I say your name, please stand up. And Lori, you acted like you wanted to correct me. Am I? She is district lay leader. I'm sorry. Larry Cruz, if you could. Yeah. Valerie Wilson, Chris Feese, Shannon Pollard, Rebecca Ward, Carrie Matthew, there she is, and Caitlin McInnes. There's Caitlin. So I'm going to have Lori come up, and she's going to talk about how our church operates and what our roles are. So.
Thank you. Good morning. This is when you know you're old because you can't remember years, and so I've been told that you just add another 2 years. We have this opportunity when we went through HCI, which was a combination of learning how to become better organized. And so the single board model is this beautiful idea of being able to have 9 people wear 3 different hats. And so that is where you have our 9 lay people, and we have the opportunity to be staff parish. We also have to be finance, and we also have to be trustees. But as we look at those things, it gives few people doing this position, and then it gives opportunities for everybody to be able to be out in ministry and being outside those doors. One of the coolest things is that we have an organizational chart, which we were blessed to be able to go to training. And just look at the very top. Jesus Christ is with us in our mission to do the Great Commission. And then we're part of the Charge Conference, but I also want to just lead you down to the leadership board. So the leadership board are those 9 people who carry all those different hats, but then it is more of like a board of directors. We're not actually the doers because each one of us are given a spiritual gift, and we're wanting to work with you to go out there and do those spiritual gifts, and then we're more of a board that has some visioning, who helps make goals, who makes sure that we're accountable for getting forward and moving where God is leading us, all right? And then below that, the pastor is in charge of these main different ministry teams, all right? But the coolest thing is that Jesus is in charge, that we are part of a team led by lay leaders who cast vision, and that frees us up for everybody else to go out there and outside those doors, all right?
John and I noticed both at the exact same time that pastor was pasto, so. Yeah, we're all very human. I wanted to make sure Lori didn't think John and I were laughing at her. We were laughing at pasto. So as I mentioned when I came in, this is the first of 4 town halls we're going to have in 2026, and our goal is to really truly involve the congregation in all what is going on and keeping you guys informed, and also really help you identify who to come to if you have questions, want to know what's going on in the church. We're here to make sure that we're as open and as transparent as we can be so everyone is very, very aware. They'll be held throughout the year as a way of communicating and keeping the congregation going. Let's see, let's go to The next slide. Yeah. Nope. Back it up. Can you, maybe not. So the launch of our leadership teams, these are both things that have been in existence for a while, but then it's also a growing time. So we're adding to those leadership teams. We have the children's ministry team. As you're all aware, Rachel is really heavily involved in that. The connections team, our hospitality team, our technology ministry team, who's running the show in spite of my efforts, the worship team, and our student ministry team. Next week, we're going to be hosting what we call team huddles after church, and we want to share a description of those. We want everybody to come and learn more and see if it's an area that you feel you're led to be involved in and led to make a difference in our church. So as we go through all of this, we definitely need more help. We have a lot of people who have been doers in our church, but we need more people to jump in and help us reach our vision and mission and reach out to others. So if you're interested, be sure to come. And then, are we doing celebrate who we are? All right. Yeah. Very good.
So over the past year, we have been really crafting what our vision we would like to have for this church. And there's been several of us on this team. We've looked at our vision, our mission, and value statements that help guide us as a church. And they help us to not just know who we are, but what to say yes to, and then ultimately what to say no to. Our vision statement is as follows: connect people to Jesus Christ and to one another to lead Christ-centered lives. Our mission statement, our mission is to make new disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And what a hearty and wonderful mission that will be. We've listed values on this slide. Christ-centered, come as you are, relational, love God, love thy neighbor, and live generously. Christ-centered, so we're going to talk about each of these individually. Christ is at the center of everything we do. Can we all probably be in agreement with that, or should be? With Christ at the center, we are called to love, provide humility, forgiveness, and service. Come as you are. Everyone from all walks of life can come together to worship and grow in faith here. Everyone deserves love and acceptance the same way that Jesus offered love and acceptance to us. Relational. We are created to be in community with one another and living in genuine relationships with family, small groups, and community is part of who we are and what we do. If you think about like the things we do with Bright Futures, that's just one really big example of the things that we try to do. Love God, love thy neighbor. Jesus said the most important thing is to love God with everything you are and love our neighbor as you love ourselves. We show our love for God by how we love each other as we live out John Wesley's guidance to us. Do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God. Live generously. We believe faith should have a meaningful impact on society, inspire change, and make a difference in people's lives. And we do this by loving and serving our community and our world. We believe people belong here way before people may understand that they belong here and that they believe they should be here. Pastor John's sermon today really hit a lot of hard notes that we're dealing with things that are difficult in this world. And some people may come here to be with us on Sundays or, may see us online, and they may be dealing with things that are very real in the world, like having some hurt from a previous church, feeling alone, being skeptical of God's love. Maybe they've never been to church before. Maybe that's something that's new to them. Maybe they don't hear those words in whatever their home life has been or what that looks like. And they may have a very high distrust with institutional churches or what other people may say is organized religion. We want those people to know that here at Harrisonville United Methodist Church, that they are loved and that they are cared for and they are welcome, and we want them to be here. Regardless of what maybe playing those tapes in our heads of we're not good enough, we shouldn't be here, that they won't accept me for who I am for the things that I've done, or they don't like someone who looks like me or has a lifestyle that isn't like theirs. But we know that not to be true, that we're caring and that we're loving, and we accept anyone who walks in this door because we want to provide them the very best, help support the very best relationship they can have with Jesus Christ. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Shannon. So, and really what Shannon just talked about is really so important. You know, we had folks join the church today. That's great. Agree with that. You know, but in this last year, we've had, I'm trying to remember the number, I think it's 28 people that have come to claim us as their church family, even though they haven't joined. Now just think about that for a minute. That kind of goes back to that they belong before they believe. People need to be able to know it's safe, that they can have different opinions, like Shannon was saying, in order for them to trust enough to come to know what we believe. That is a really fundamental piece that you're going to hear come up over and over again. So I'm really grateful Shannon made that point. I just wanted to reemphasize it as well because it's so critical to who we are and how we welcome people with that. So knowing that, how do we live that out? Well, these are some things we just want to celebrate real quick today. These are not our groups, this next one, which are recovery groups, but we have 2 recovery groups, and there are over 80 people that are part of that kind of gathering. I think that's kind of right. That maybe is a little bit more. I know when they had their celebration, it was more than that that came together, and those are people who are seeking a new way of life, a new way of being. And, 6 or 7 years ago, we might not have recognized that we needed to be a place that welcomed those kind of people. Amen? And now, those are folks that we welcome to be a part of us. And we've expanded our grief ministry here at the church, and we had 48 people who came to our Blue Christmas. Now, these numbers, they sound like they're numbers, but just remember, that's 48 people who were hurting, right? Who needed to know that somebody was with them. I was one of those people. I was just so grateful there was another pastor that came and helped me lead that service because I lost it several times during the service. And it was good to know that in my grief, there were other people grieving with me. And so we do that. We've used our hub in ways that we never understood, like an old-fashioned wake we've done in those places, and it's been a wonderful place. We send grief packets to families to help them in their time. That there are 4 booklets that we send out to folks that come at certain stages in their grief to just help them along in that process. Then the Advent conspiracy, that's a way that we've kind of gone beyond our walls. And we've been building ongoing relationships now with families through Angel Tree. We're seeing some of those families more than once and helping them in other ways besides Christmas. We're assisting, this year we had 73 food boxes, thanks to you all. That was amazing. That was amazing. And people had tears as they got those boxes of food. They had not expected that. It was a great thing. We're building stronger relationships with the middle school, and we had a Christmas Eve offering that actually there's money still came in last week for. So it's over $4,000 that we got in through that. Just give yourselves a hand for all the ways that you reached out in that kind of way. Last year, we welcomed 58 first-time guests, and here's what we know, is that of the folks who live in Harrisonville, if they come as a first-time guest here, 80% of them come back. That is amazing. But that also means you welcome them, right? You made them feel at home. We made this place feel safe. We had 7 new members. This says 12 others who made HUMC their church home. That number I know is wrong. I just hadn't finished the year-end report before I did that. We baptized 5 people. We increased our worship attendance to 217. That's up 16 from last year. That's good growth in this day. So we're grateful for that. Giving, this is a harder chart. Here's what I just need you to know. Your giving was amazing. You gave more last year in every category than you did in previous years. And that was amazing, because last year was not an easy year for some of us, right? But you did amazingly well. And we paid more of our apportionments last year than we have, I think, in the last 8 years. Our percentage went up. We were able to do that. And at the same time, we put more money into missions. We put more money into our facilities and getting things right and getting things repaired. We put more money into children's ministry. We put more money into sharing God's word in other places. Isn't that amazing kind of thing? So just give yourselves a hand for that one too. It's okay to celebrate, man. So it's great. In our facility kind of stuff, we partnered with the Scouts, and they did some landscaping stuff for us, and that was fantastic. There are lights in the parking lot. Woo! That's a good thing. We have a new space for our missions base. That's a good thing. Denise and I are thankful, and all the pastors who are going to come after us are thankful. You have done some amazing things at the parsonage. I mean, it is a wonderful, wonderful home. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it was amazing. So grateful for all those things. So all that being said, those are just a few of the things that we could celebrate from last year. But here is kind of what we're looking forward to in the future, because the leadership board has said, hey, we think that there are people in Harrisonville that need to be continually reached for the gospel, and we think that we're the kind of church who has the message that Jesus wants people to know and to hear and to receive. And so we want to grow our church family here. We want to grow our impact in our community. We want to grow the number of small groups that we have. We want to grow those kinds of things. Does that make sense? And so as we're looking at those things, there are some trends that are going on in the life of the church around us, not just in our church, but around us. And some of those trends are noted by research by a guy by the name of George Barna, who is very, very, he is almost always on target with his research. And then these things have all been put together by another fellow by the name of Kerry Newhoff. Don't try to spell that. It won't really come out or the way you think. But Kerry usually at the beginning of every year says, hey, here are 6, 7 things that are going to impact the life of the church in this coming year. I've been watching those trends now for about 10 years. And you know, he hasn't missed in those 10 years. He hasn't missed once in those 10 years. And so I pay attention when Kerry and Barna say, hey, these things are happening in the life of the church. And here's one of them, is that Gen Z, and those are people 14 through 28. That's not most of us in the room. I left that quite some time ago. And that they are actually coming to church in greater frequency than any other generation. That this is the fastest growing age group in churches that are growing. Do you let that just sink in? Okay? That this is the fastest growing age group in churches that are growing. Now, if you look around our church on a Sunday morning, I would say that that group is not as present in our sanctuary as it is in our community. Maybe, right? And so what that means is that we need to maybe do a little work here. And also note, there's little bitty numbers out the ends of these things that tell how often people come to church. Now, this is where it's not like us. We are fortunately a little higher than this, but the average attendance is less than twice a month. Okay? Now, we do better than that. I'm grateful for that. But that is kind of the reality. So that impacts how we plan things, how we launch new things, how we develop things, how we communicate things, all of that impacts that. So Lori's going to share a couple things about how we might respond to that graphic right there. Does that make sense, Lori? Come with great wisdom.
Our great wisdom comes from Jesus Christ. Isn't this so exciting to see that young people are coming back? What that tells me as a board leadership is that people want to be connected, they want to belong. Some of these people, like Pastor John said, they've not been in a church. And what is it like to be a church? And I am excited that this year that we're going to start having those kinds of conversations of what is needed. People are alone. People have church hurt. We are learning all these things. And how do we have conversations? Every one of us have people that are in that Gen Z category. Have conversations. Find out what they need, what's their issues, what they need help with, what their hope needs to be. And then what we're going to start looking at is having events. How does it look like to have a new worship service? These are all things, small groups, other activities that bring people together, that connect us, that allow for God's hope, but then also provides that community and that family that we all look for, and especially with Jesus Christ.
Those same sentiments are true of our ministry teams as well. As we look across our ministry teams, they are populated by people who want to give of their time, and really be involved in the church and help the church grow. But we have to invite those in that are new to our church and really make a place for them to step up and lead. We need to find those ways to invite them in, make them feel comfortable, and make them feel a part of that team to help us grow. They're going to bring new ideas and new opportunities that we don't know about today. And we need to hear from them as they come into being a part of our church.
So what that kind of also means is that the people that we have up front have to, if people can't see themselves here, then why would they want to come here? Does that kind of make sense? And so when they see me, I'm not 14 to 28, right? But neither is anybody who stands up here on Sunday morning. Okay? Neither is anybody who greets them at the door. Neither is anybody who's in ministry leadership anywhere visible on Sunday morning. Does that make sense? So what does that mean for us to make room for people to be seen? Do you hear? You know, so I had somebody this morning that said, you know, Pastor John, I'd be willing to be up front and lead a prayer sometime. I'd be willing to get up and do something. And my first response was, I don't know if I really want you up there. I'm just being honest, okay? And then I'm reading this report, and I'm going, 14 to 28, yeah. They fit that. Do you hear me? Am I going to be willing? Are you going to be willing? Does that make sense? So, hey, just turn to somebody. I'm just going to give you about 60 seconds, maybe 90 seconds, and just say, as I hear that trend, here's what excites me about it. Here's what I think is going to be our challenge. Have a little conversation. Go. Okay, kind of begin to land your plane here. I don't want to have a crash landing, but just kind of bring your conversation down easy. So, we're just having these conversations right now, just so that you can begin to have the conversation. Does that make sense? Because we need this more than we can solve today. Agreed? But you probably have people in your family that are 14 to 28. Maybe they're your kids, maybe your grandkids, maybe they're your neighbor. You probably have some of those people that you know. Agreed? I know somebody that I work with in the office, and she helps me to say that's probably not the best way to say that, Pastor John. She helps me to think about this is going to maybe settle better with people who are outside the church and people who are younger than you. Sometimes I don't like that. I'm just being honest, okay? But I need to hear it. We all need to hear it. Does that make sense? So this is just a conversation to get us started today. Now here's the next trend that's going on. And this has got some good stuff and some not so good stuff to it. And the trend that's kind of happening right now is that there's actually more men that are coming to church. If you talk about somebody new coming to the church, there's a higher proportion of those folks being men than women. That is a reversal of a long tenured time. Now, that's good news, but it's also bad news, right? I mean, because wouldn't you like it to kind of be both of those groups are coming? And so we don't know all the reasons why, but a couple of the reasons that are kind of being suggested is that in the global church, the bigger church, there is this re-emphasis in more conservative kind of circles on the role of men in church and leadership, and it's created kind of a bro culture in some churches. And that makes men more want to come. Now, at the same time, as you increase a bro culture in a church, who feels less welcome? Females, correct? And as you think and look at all the scandals that are happening in the church, who is usually the victim of those scandals? And as you think about leadership in the church, in those more conservative churches, who is it that is being excluded from leadership? Also, maybe women. Does that kind of make sense? So there's an opportunity there for us to welcome both, right? And provide safe places for everybody. Does that kind of make sense? So somebody's going to talk to that. Who's going to talk to that? Oh, there we go.
So we'll talk about the bro culture a little bit, in that engaging with more men as they're, wanting to come into the church. And I tell you, some of that's been already happening with a little bit of ground roots, which has been great. For the longest time it was Cecil and that group very much involved in men's breakfast and the men's groups doing things to help the church. But as we've gotten some of the new folks into our church, we've seen them really take hold of spirituality and wanting to learn more and grow more. So what we're looking at is just how can we engage with men who are looking to return to the church in ways that are healthy for them and their families. Trying to understand what their needs are, what do they need. And we do this with women as well, just trying to get our arms around when we look at that younger group, what do they need to help us help them progress in their relationship with Christ, in their lives, and in their families. So what we look at is targeting community groups to address this change. Community groups here don't mean we're putting together a group for, we'll say, we're not just putting it together for study, but we're putting it together for the purpose of community. People want to belong. People want to be a part of something. And putting those groups together where they feel like they have someone that they can go and talk to, share what's challenging them, and share what, we'll say, struggles and where they are on their journey in their walk, helping, just support them as they go through life. That's really what we think about when we think about those community groups. We had a start with a men's, Bible study or get together, however you wanted to look at it, just a community group on Monday nights last fall that has fallen by the wayside. It needs to come back. We need to get re-involved with that. But those are the kinds of things that we want to do to really reach out to both men and women to make them feel like they belong here and that they've got a safe place to go and a safe place that they can share what's going on in their world to help them get through and move forward. So with that, I'll turn it back over to John on trends in churches and anything else he wants to say on this.
Yep. So when you think about community groups, it really is not, those groups are not for the purpose of learning. They're more for the purpose of fellowship and community. So that as people get to know each other, then they'll be open to having deeper conversations. Does that make sense? So like our prayer shawl group that gets together and crochets and knits and what's the best word? Visits. That's the nice word. Yes. Well, I didn't want to use gossip, but visits a lot. And solves the world's problems. I had a group in another church, they called themselves the Merry Widows. And it was a bunch of ladies that were widows, and they got together and had a meal and played dominoes or spoons. And they were vicious as they played that game. But I mean, it just was a fun group. Do you hear what I'm saying? Some folks get together for a dinner club. But out of those groups come deeper relationships that you can have. So I'm going to push us on for a minute. We aren't probably going to get through everything today, but I want to get to a couple more that I want us to make sure we have conversation about. So this next one is just kind of real quick. That here's a trend that is happening in churches that Sunday morning worship preaching is moving from presentation to encounter. That's not how I was trained. I was trained to be content rich, to be about presenting something that people wanted to know, wanted to learn, that kind of thing. But people are coming to worship to have an encounter with God, to have an encounter with each other, to have a spiritual experience, not just knowledge. You can get knowledge anywhere on the internet. You cannot get an experience there. Does that kind of make sense to you? So that shifts things, right? It shifts how we lead worship, how I preach, how other things happen. The other thing that is increasing is that more and more people are reading their Bibles during the week. There are more people reading their Bible during the week than have ever been for the last 40 years. They're opening their Bible 3 to 4 times a week. Some people are doing it daily, but 3 to 4 times a week. That is a huge shift from 0 to 3 to 4 times a week. Is that kind of okay? So here is Lori, real quick. She's going to say a couple words, and then we're going to get into the deeper conversation.
I'm going to tell you something that I'm just so excited about is that we are blessed to have a pastor who is still learning and craving to reach people in different ways that are different than what you were trained to do. I love that. Curiosity. I've had a pleasure to go to a couple different churches with Pastor John. It's fun to see what other people do, things that are similar. And so there's going to be a piece of this that we're going to start experimenting a little bit, and I'm thankful for that. Because the goal is for God to have an encounter with God that changes you. And to start thinking about it through the week. God is 24/7. and he wants to be with you throughout your whole life. So what do we do to get these small groups going? How do we encounter the Word? How do we pick up the Bible? Guys, it's 2026. You don't have to carry paper. It's on your phone. This is what's so cool. God is here to help. And I'm also thankful for Brooke, because you're going to be able to help bring some of these things that are going on in the Sunday morning service. And then how do we keep cultivating that throughout the rest of the week? Throw out a question. Do you remember that question? What do you think about that? And so it can also allow conversations with people that you work with or your loved ones. So I'm excited. How do we pull all that together in response to new things we can do?
Well, I figured that out as I was sitting here. So, sorry, I have to lost my place a little bit, guys. So, it says our response.
Here.
I have lost my place. Thank you. Okay, so I really hadn't lost my place. I didn't think we were that far along. As we look at how we reach more people, and trying to, thank you, Cecil, trying to figure out how we can touch them, one of the things that we've been talking about is Google Ads, and that's hats off to Brooke and what she's been doing in that area to try and pull us into the whatever century you happen to be in, but it's definitely not the day of print. It's really about how we can touch and reach people in new ways. Social media is out there. It's something we've got to embrace and take along. We can use those algorithms that exist in social media to bring people into real relationships. Church does have the answer for what people are really longing for, which is real relationships and belonging. Social media doesn't do that, or at least it doesn't do it nearly as effectively as being in a community group, etc. So we do that by offering real experiences, real opportunities for engagement with real people. We received a Google Ad grant for $10,000 to help us reach people who are out there trolling the internet looking for something that is real, and believe me, that those folks exist. So we're trying to bring more prayer experiences into the fold, one Sunday night per month. Experiences, also prayer ads, how we can be praying for you and really reaching out. We will continue to use products like Facebook and Instagram because those are still very, very effective at reaching people, but we're trying to really incorporate that into what we're doing, and Brooke's driving that train to try and, again, get people invited in and really get them into a real relationships with folks here at the church and to grow that. So let's see.
Yeah, that was it. But I got to apologize because it was me. So we have not rehearsed this presentation, as you can tell. And part of what you need to know is that a good portion of every one of our leadership team meetings, we spend 30 to 45 minutes learning and talking about these kinds of issues. Does that kind of make sense? And how should we respond as a church? What's our leadership role in them? And so that's how these things are coming to you today, is they're a part of the beginnings of our conversations. So we don't have everything worked out. We don't have everything polished. And I was supposed to talk about, back it up a slide, this before Gary got up. And so that's why he was lost, just because I got my pages out of order. And but here's the real thing. I don't know how many of you are really familiar with AI. It's artificial intelligence is what it is. I don't like it. I've resisted it. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to engage with it. And here's the thing. I don't get a choice. It is there. It is the reality. People are choosing to make AI bots on the internet their best friend over a real person and their spouse. And here's the thing, it works by algorithm, which means it begins to tell you what you want to hear. Not what's true, Not what's best for you, but what you want to hear. And so what's ending up happening is that people are more and more being discipled by algorithm. And what that means is that instead of God's word being primary in their life and being what shapes their faith beliefs and drives their thoughts, they're being discipled by what they read on the internet. Okay? Now, let me give you a key example of this. So I'm going to throw my dad under the bus. Okay? My dad says to me, I don't watch the news anymore because it's biased and nobody tells you the truth. I get all my news from the internet because it is always telling me the truth. Now, here's what's happening. If he starts watching a certain theme or a certain thread of conversation, guess what is the only thing that shows up on his computer? That's it. There are no competing viewpoints. And so when he goes to his computer, that's the only thing I see, so that must be the truth. Do you hear that, friends?
We are being controlled by media.
No, we're being controlled by algorithms, which is also what media responds to. If we only want to hear one thing, you'll only hear one thing. I Googled camper ads, and I told it a certain size camper I was looking for. You know what happens on my computer every time I turn it on now? I didn't know there were that many people selling campers. And guess what? They all sell them only that size. Do you hear what I'm saying? Now that's a lie. Agreed? But you hear how we see what we want to see and we see more of it. And then it shapes our thoughts. And then we wonder why when we come together as a church we're divided. Well, we're divided because we don't all watch the same channel. We don't all Google the same thing. But we're discipled by it. Do you hear that? So what Gary's talking about is how do we as a church begin to interact in that algorithm to reset people's algorithms to be on faith rather than everything else in the world. Google ads and putting ourselves in those feeds, Instagram, reposting, does that kind of make sense to you? So this is, I think, really a big deal. It also means, though, that we're going to have to automate some of our systems so that we can keep up and we can do things. And so some of you have been saying, hey, why don't we send out a text to everybody? Well, it's because we didn't know our software would do that, but guess what? It does. But in order to do that, guess what we need? Everybody's cell phone number. Okay? It only works if we have your cell phone number. Okay? And so those are some of the things we got to kind of figure out. Does that kind of make sense? So that is just a really big conversation for us. Okay? It's a huge one. Okay? And it is going to be a hard conversation, in my opinion. Does that kind of make sense? Now we're at time, and so I'm just going to share this last slide. This just tell you that these things are happening. We are going to fix this. And we have funds already that we've started collecting for the fixing of this lighting stuff and to get lights in here. So everybody say hallelujah. There we go. And we are going to be expanding our children's ministry, and we are going to relaunch our student ministry this year. We are going to be beginning more community groups, and we're going to be looking for ways to improve our communication with each other so that we can have these conversations. That's why we're having multiple town halls. That's why we're going to have a conversation about things going on in the world here in a couple weeks, because we as people of faith need to engage in those conversations. Is everybody in agreement with that? Now, here's the thing. We may not all agree with how we end up, or we may not agree, all of us, in what we eventually kind of lean into. But here's what I really hope we can agree upon. We're going to love each other. We're going to hear each other. And everyone's going to be valued in those conversations. Does that make sense? And in that way, I think we're going to reach more people. Jimmy?
Are you looking for community
Am I looking for community context? So what do you mean by that, Jimmy?
Sometimes I'm getting old, my hearing's gone, my vision's gone. But I understand you're wanting people. Is that what you're after?
So we're looking for ways for us to be faithful in sharing the gospel in our community. Okay? So it begins with a conversation from within us of what faithfulness looks like, and then how we engage the community with that faithfulness.
Would you want to look for people and then the gospel, right?
I'm kind of thinking I'd like beginning with the gospel, and then how do I engage people because of the gospel?
Several years ago, when I was young, we utilized the space down at the other end of the building for a lot of volleyball games.
Sure.
We had high schoolers who were bringing their friends in, and we were using it as a recruit for the church.
And if that is what people are looking for because there's nowhere else for them to play volleyball, then that would be a great response for us.
At that time, somehow even the school got involved with those whole volleyball teams. Do they still do that?
So I don't know, but again, all of that starts with we want to share the gospel. How can we share the gospel? So it starts in the one. That's right.
Just a quick comment. In my mind, this is about meeting those who aren't in church, but meeting them where they are. And as we stand here today, we have a lot of learning to do to figure out where they are, to be able to deliver the gospel in such a way they receive it. So we want to really be mindful of meeting our community where it is, to bring it into an understanding of the gospel and a relationship with Christ.
Yeah. And some of those may be things we've done before, but just doing in a different way. And some of them may be things we've never considered. Okay? So I've gone past our time. So I'm going to stop us, not because the conversation is over, because it is not. And if you want to hang out, we can keep having conversation, but thank you for your time. Was this a helpful conversation for you to know about where your leadership team, what they're trying to learn, how they're trying to respond, and we don't have exactly how it's going to come out yet. But does that kind of make sense? You feel more informed than before? A little bit? Okay, so you can give us some feedback on how this would be better, because we're going to do it 3 more times this year. Okay, so we'll just keep learning. Yeah. That you were an elder? So what I'm happy is that you're not only an elder, but you're an elder that's still here. All right. Well, God bless you. Thanks for sticking around.